So having examined in depth three different spatial systems, the spatial system of linear perspective, the intentionally inconsistent use of space in Le Déjeuner by Manet, and then Picasso's more radical reconceptualization of space that break from linear perspective and tradition, I'd like to go fairly quickly through a number of different concepts of space in the works of some contemporary artists. If you're interested in a little bit more on this topic, I could recommend drawing a contemporary approach, but my talk is going to offer quite a few more examples than you'd find in that book. This is an example of an artwork by Enrique Shigoya. There are works by Shigoya at the Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art here on campus. Shigoya is using a collage space, a space that brings together fragments of different objects and images and assembles them into a new artwork. And through this collage use of space, he's also opening up a cultural space, a space of cultural critique and dialogue. So, for instance, you have Western art represented in the fragment in the lower left-hand quadrant, the print, where we see someone being hung. And we see the linear perspective space used in that print. But then we also see the image referencing the art of Central and South America. In the upper right-hand corner, we see a fragment that refers to the Bauhaus, that German school from the early part of the 20th century where we get the elements and principles of arts from. And we also have a reference to cartoon space in the guise of Superman, all brought together in a collage space. Here we have an image by the Lakota artist Francis J. Yellow. This is a hierarchical use of space. Notice the imposing cavalrymen that are commanding Native Americans to be force marched across the country, and the cavalrymen are shown as larger than the victims that they are forcing to move. Over on the right-hand side, we have a kind of a stacked space with arms and hands holding various kinds of weapons and signs. We do have a reference to linear perspective in the gallows in the upper right-hand quadrant. At the same time, the image is made on a map, and a map is an example of an indexical use of space. An index is like think back to old libraries that had card catalogs. You'd go to a drawer, there'd be a bunch of cards in that drawer, you'd look up the book, and there'd be a call number for that book. You'd go find the book based on its location. The number would tell you where it was located. So that's an example of an index. Today we go into a library and we go to a computer terminal and we find out where the location of the book is. So that database is an index for the location of the books. It's a index for the physical space in which the books are organized. A map is an index of the physical space that actually exists and that you can travel through. So here, the map is an indexical use of space. We also have a hierarchical use of space, a stacked space, and a reference to linear space. I'm sure you're familiar with this artist, M.C. Escher. Often he combines multiple perspectives in his work. He also is known for playing with positive-negative reversal in his work so that the positive space trades places with the negative space. But in this case, the space is one of multiple perspectives. Here's an example of overlapping space, yes, but it's also a highly edited space. I might even call it a poetic space. It's an edited space in the sense that everything that is not important to the artist to show has been removed, and only that which is important, the relationships that are most important to the artist, is being shown. That's kind of like a poem where only certain words are chosen and arranged in relationship to other words to evoke certain feelings or ideas or associations. Here's a painting by the Danish artist Wilhelm Hammershøi. He's known for his poetic use of space, spaces that are subdued and that evoke a feeling for the spaces in the rooms that he depicts that goes far beyond the superficial description of surfaces. Hammershøi's work seems to evoke associations of spaces that have been inhabited, that have been lived in, that somehow contain the accumulated experience of people and hold them quietly within their confines. Some people might regard Chuck Close's early portraiture as examples of realism or a realistic space, but it's really not. If you look very carefully at it, what he's doing is he's recreating photographic space, the kind of space that's recorded through a camera lens. In this close-up, in this detail of the portrait, you can see what I mean a little bit more clearly. The center of the image is really very detailed and very sharp and crisp. As you move out from the center, the portrait becomes progressively more blurry. So what Close is doing is he's recreating the depth of field that a camera lens sees. So this, far from being a realistic use of space, is a photographic kind of space. In his later work, Chuck Close builds on this photographic use of space and layers on top of it an optical use of space where intense swaths of color and swirls of color combine in the eye in ways which seem naturalistic when viewed at a certain distance, but yet still retain their own properties, their own characteristics as abstract swirls. Here's a work by James Rosenquist, often identified as a pop artist. If you look at his use of space, there are a few things going on. First, there's a collage space that he's using, so he's taking fragments from different places and bringing them together. There's an optical use of space because there are different fragments separated across the canvas that our eye wants to bring together to make sense out of them. Finally, there's a shifting space. So we're not sure what the foreground is, we're not sure what the background is. There's a positive, negative reversal at the core of Rosenquist's use of space. This is a work by Martin Ramirez, who is a self-taught artist. Unfortunately, he spent most of his adult life being institutionalized in California. He was diagnosed as a catatonic schizophrenic. He's considered one of the 20th century's self-taught masters. Here we see an intense psychological use of space, where the figure on the horse is caught in some kind of hallway or perhaps a room and is surrounded by these aggressive, tight-feeling lines that are pushing in from all directions. For a different kind of psychological space, we can look at the work of Sidney Goodman. Notice that while there seems to be a somewhat realistic representation of a person, there are many details that have been left out or blurred out, and the intent is for us to respond emotionally or psychologically to how this figure is feeling. Goodman achieves the psychological use of space through a variety of means, including the character of his marks, the composition, and especially here, the placement of the light source. While weddings are supposed to be happy events, the figure in this image does not seem to be happy. Somewhat similar to Martin Ramirez's psychological use of space, which was claustrophobic, this figure has been isolated in the middle. The use of value, the placement of lights and darks, and the way the marks have been made lend the image an eerie quality. Once again, Sidney Goodman uses a psychological kind of space. While we could characterize Carol Walker's use of space as a graphic space or perhaps even a flat space, we also have to consider that she's using silhouettes, and historically silhouettes were often produced by slaves taught to produce these silhouettes almost as a kind of entertainment. And given that Walker is involved in the kind of a social critique, we have to factor in this historical use of space. So her space has a pronounced historical and cultural dimension.